Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dave's Top 3000 Songs of the Rock Era. Today I'm up to song number 2326, and that one is Old Days by Chicago. This came out in 1975. Here's a picture of the single, has a pretty famous Chicago logo on it, like all their singles and albums did, I think. And it was also featured on their album Chicago XIII. They were kind of famous for numbering all their albums. So that was their eighth album, also came out in 1975. And here's a picture of the band Chicago around the time they recorded. They were a pretty big band, they had 7 members, and they were mainly known for their brass section. They had some pretty amazing brass, instrumental section with their music. They also sang really well, I think. Anyway, as usual, I'm going to start with a sample of this song and react to it. So here goes. Here's a sample of Old Days by Chicago.
Old days, times I remember, fun days, filled with simple pleasure, driving movies, comic books and blue jeans. How did it do that? Baseball cards and birthdays take me back to a world gone away. Memories seem like yesterday.
Okay, that's a sample of Old Days by Chicago. I think it's a really good song. I mean, most of the songs I know from Chicago are really good, I think. Um, just one of many, many hits for them, and a pretty great song, I think. And as you can tell, it's a nostalgia song. It was written by their trombone player. That was James Pankow. Here's a picture of him here playing the trombone. And it was about his childhood days, in the 1950s. This was written in 1975, I think. And he's probably writing about some stuff he remembered from around 20 years earlier when he was a child growing up in Chicago. And I don't know if it's so much a nostalgia song for how things were better in the good old days. I never got that feeling. I think it's just that he had nostalgia for his childhood. He's singing about the only thing that's really distinctly 50s, I think, is Howdy Doody. Because Howdy Doody was only on TV, I think, from 1948 to 1960. But everything else he mentions, baseball cards, blue jeans, summer nights, streetcars, he could get all that in the 70s too, and even today, Chicago's got the L. I think the only thing he mentions comic books. I don't think too many kids read comic books anymore. Now you get everything online. But so, I think it's more just about nostalgia from when he was a child growing up and just the things he remembered when he was growing up. And I understand the feeling. It's a good song. Another thing I like in the song, he says, funny faces filled with joy and laughter. And that reminds me of something. I remember first time I went to see the play Grease with my parents. I think it was in the mid 70s. This is before the movie came out. And I remember they had like pictures. I guess they were photos, or maybe they were look like photos of kids from the 50s in high school. I was telling my mom, I said, God, those kids look so funny. Because, kids didn't look like that in the 70s. Then they had a lot longer hair and they were dressed a lot differently. And my mom said, people are going to think the same of you in 20 years. And maybe it's true. I don't know. I mean, fads come and go. And, people from different eras kind of look funny to us today. So I just thought I'd mention that. There's another thing I want to mention about this song, "Old Days." I mean, I saw Chicago twice in concert. I was lucky enough to see him twice. I lived in Chicago for 7 years. I went to graduate school there, the University of Chicago. from 1985 to around 1992. And even though it was a bad time in my life, I did really like the city of Chicago. Very exciting city. Great music. The band Chicago, just one case in point. They got great blues and jazz bars all over the city. Uh, but yeah, I saw them at the Taste of Chicago. I think it was in the summer of 1986. Every summer they had a big 10-day long Fourth of July festival over in Grant Park. If you guys have never been to Chicago, I highly recommend you take a trip there. It's not a war zone, as Trump says. I think it's one of the most exciting cities in the country, and I hope it remains that way. But anyway, so I was lucky enough to see them there, and I also saw them about 5 years ago in San Diego. And this is kind of a funny story I have to tell you guys. I had some friends about 5 years ago. They're not my friends anymore. I had a woman. There's a woman I had a big crush on. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get in trouble. But she was one of my best friends for about 10 years. Um, and then she got married, and I was still friends with her. I was stupid enough to stay friends with her, even though she married a horrible jerk who I never liked. Um, but they were very dishonest people. I didn't even realize how dishonest at the time. And they had just talked me into moving into this kind of dumpy town called La Mesa, which is a suburb of Chicago. And we were walking down the street one day shortly after I moved there, and we ran into some real weirdo guy, an old guy. And Patricia, I shouldn't have said her name. Well, I said her first name. I don't think that's gonna, maybe you guys can try to look it up and blackmail me if you want, but I'm not worried about that. Anyway, she was with me, and she started talking to this crazy guy for about a half an hour. And this guy said he was a multimillionaire. He said that he had just made a big fortune, and he said that he had bought a condo over in one of the other suburbs of San Diego. I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of the ritzy suburbs. And he said that the band Chicago was going to be playing there. He asked us if we wanted to join him that day. And I guess, I was kind of listening in on this conversation. I thought my friend, Patricia, I've already said her name. I thought she was kind of nuts for even talking to this guy, but they agreed to do it. So a couple of weeks later, I went with her and her husband, and we went, to this place where this crazy guy was, and he claimed he bought a condo there. It turned out later he was a homeless man. He was a liar. I didn't even know that because I'm a very gullible person. And I kind of believed everything that was coming out of his mouth at the time. But the good thing about all this was that, I got to hear Chicago again. I couldn't see them because we weren't in the arena. We were at his hotel where he invited us. And, the first song I heard Chicago play was this one, Old Days. And I thought they sounded great. To me, I couldn't tell the difference from how they sounded. This was in 2020 when they were probably all in their 70s or at least late 60s. And, I thought they sounded great. And heard him play a lot of other great songs too. The other one I remember hearing him play was Make Me Smile, which is one of their masterpieces. But I just thought I'd mention this, and it turned out, I don't know, I don't want to go on about this story. I'll just say one more thing, though, about this whole extravaganza. I thought that this woman, Patricia, was my best friend for about 10 years, and her husband ended up cheating me out of $30,000. And it was a very, very bad experience, the whole thing. So watch who you mingle with, I'm just giving you guys a little bit of free advice. Don't be a sucker. Be vigilant, especially today, because there's a lot of desperate people out there. Things aren't so great these days, as I'm sure you guys all know. A lot of people are pretty desperate for the mean green, as they say. So just keep your wits about you. I learned that lesson the hard way. Anyway, that concludes my feature on Old Days by Chicago. So thank you for watching. Here's a little bit of a psychedelic rock. You guys rock. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.